My wife is pregnant, but the baby isn't mine. She says it's for her twin sister. Name's Michael Carter, suburban dad with 3 kids, a mortgage, and a calendar color-coded around custody exchanges and Little League. If that sentence made you blink, good. That's how it hit me the night Jennifer scrolled her phone and said she'd made a decision. Not about dinner, about carrying a child for her sister Emily. Where I live, you can't just sign papers and be done. State law makes you live apart for 12 months before a divorce is final, like time could chill betrayal. They call it a cooling-off period. For me, it's a slow burn. We still share a roof because the kids' schools are nearby and rent is insane. We share a kitchen too, only now there's prenatal vitamins by the coffee maker that remind me with every pour. I wasn't asked. I was informed. So here's the story of how a family on a quiet cul-de-sac became a headline I never wanted. My name is Michael Carter, 48, mid-level project manager who's better at fixing leaky faucets and 4th-grade math than office politics. 3 kids, 2 carpools, 1 mortgage that feels like a 4th child. Our house sits on a quiet cul-de-sac with mailbox flags that go up like metronomes after 5 p.m. Most evenings I'm a short-order cook with a whistle around my neck, rotating burgers, spelling lists, and cleats by the door. I tell you this because routine used to be my anchor. It kept the chaos of life from knocking me over. Saturday mornings meant pancakes. Sunday afternoons meant folding laundry while the game played low on TV. When you're raising kids, predictability is mercy. You measure seasons by permission slips and shoe sizes. I thought that meant we were okay, that showing up was the whole job. Then a hairline crack appeared, the kind you ignore until a storm finds it. I didn't know a single sentence could split a house in 2, but I was about to. Jennifer and I met stocking shelves at a grocery store in our 20s. She was fast, funny, and could turn a coupon drawer into origami. We built a life the practical way, used cars, hand-me-down cribs, vacations measured in miles to the nearest lake. She and her twin, Emily, share the kind of mirror chemistry people joke about. Same laugh, same taste in candles, same way of tilting a head when they want something. Emily married Daniel, a decent guy on paper. Steady job, firm handshake, always brings a casserole to potlucks. Around holidays, our table doubled. The twins set out matching plates like they were reconstructing childhood. I used to like that. There's comfort in a chorus you know by heart. But being a twin means shortcuts other people don't have. A look could replace a sentence. Plans could start in whispers I wasn't part of. That's fine for birthday surprises. It's not fine when the stakes can rearrange a marriage. I didn't see how blurred lines would redraw my boundaries. You rarely notice the first creak in a house you live in. It's just a draft, you think, or the dryer out of balance. For us, it was silence that lasted a beat too long after small mistakes. Dishes left to soak overnight. Texts answered with a thumbs up instead of a sentence. We were busy, sure. Work deadlines, braces payments, permission slips breeding on the counter. But the room felt cooler even when the thermostat said 72. One night we ate in front of the TV and realized we were watching different shows on our phones. Another, she slept on the couch because the baby kicked in a dream. What baby? I laughed it off, but the joke tasted metallic. We penciled in date night and erased it for a school fundraiser. She started taking long walks at sunset with her sister. I started going to the gym later and later, pretending a treadmill could outpace dread. The crack widened the way asphalt splits after a hard winter. Quietly, inevitably, for me. It happened on a Tuesday, because big things always pretend to be ordinary. Dinner was tacos, the kids argued about whose turn it was to rinse plates, and Jennifer scrolled her phone like she was waiting for a weather alert. Then she said it. I've made a decision. Not about salsa or screen time, about carrying a baby for Emily and Daniel. She said it like she was offering to water their plants. We're identical, she added, eyes bright. It's practically Emily's pregnancy. I felt the air change. Identical isn't interchangeable. Marriage isn't a group project. I asked the obvious questions. Timing, medical risks, our kids, our budget. She waved them off like gnats at a cookout. It's my body, Michael. I can do something beautiful. The kids clattered upstairs, oblivious. The dishwasher hummed. Somewhere a dog barked. I kept my voice even and said I needed time. She said she didn't. The sentence bounced around our kitchen like a loose cabinet door. She had already decided. With or without me. I told myself she was brainstorming, that sleep would soften it. The next day an email pinged my phone. Insurance pre-authorization for fertility services. Her name. A clinic across town. I wasn't copied by accident. I was copied because the paperwork needed my employer plan. Later, while hunting for a charger, I found a neatly folded calendar page tucked in a cookbook. Consult dates highlighted, initials I didn't recognize. There it was, a plan that had blossomed without sunlight. I asked when the conversation started. She said, recently, then admitted, a few weeks, then looked away. My hands found the edge of the counter the way a man reaches for a rail on black ice. I wasn't a partner in a hard decision. I was a spectator invited after the anthem. She said secrecy kept things less dramatic. For me, it made the floor tilt. I could handle sacrifice. I couldn't handle being erased. That night, for the first time, I slept with one eye open. Trust had left the room. We finally said the quiet parts out loud at the kitchen table that had hosted birthday cakes and science projects. She led with principle. My body, my choice. I believe in autonomy. I also believe marriage binds choices the way rafters bind a roof. I said partnership means big decisions are carried on two sets of shoulders. She said I was controlling. I said I was blindsided. Voices rose, then dropped to protect ears upstairs. She argued love requires support. I answered that respect is love's oxygen. She floated a picture of family generosity. I saw a wedge driven between parents our kids still needed intact. She asked if I'd rather deny her sister a chance at motherhood. I said I'd rather not be drafted into a war I didn't declare. For a moment we were two people who shared vows, staring across a table like it was a border checkpoint. She pushed back her chair and said she was moving forward. I heard a door close that wasn't physical. Betrayal doesn't always arrive like a scandal. Sometimes it shows up like prenatal vitamins beside your coffee mug. I'd pour a cup before work and there they were, little reminders that my vote hadn't been counted. Neighbors waved on morning walks. At church, people asked how we were doing, and I gave the harmless answer parents reserve for busy seasons. You know, hanging in there. At Little League, I watched my son at bat and wondered what example I was setting about boundaries. Jennifer moved through the house with the purposeful calm of someone who has filed a flight plan. I kept trying to find a version of support that didn't erase me. Every scenario felt like sanding off my own fingerprints. One night, after tucking in the kids, I stood in the doorway of our room and realized I had started calling it the room instead of our room. That small rename landed like a gavel. I wasn't just hurt, I was invisible. And invisible men make terrible husbands, too. The ultimatum arrived without the courtesy of the word. We were in the garage, sorting bins for a yard sale when Jennifer said, "I need you on board." Not, "Can we talk?" Not, "Help me think." On board, like a flight already taxiing. I asked what on board meant. She said it meant no more arguing, no more second-guessing, just support. Rides to appointments, patience with mood swings, maybe stepping up with the kids a little more. I heard the subtext, accept this or be the villain. My phone buzzed, a group text from her family cheering, "Our journey," my name conspicuously absent. Emily called, voice honeyed with righteousness. Daniel left a voicemail with phrases like, "Family first." I looked around at the bikes, the camping gear, the chalk handprints on the freezer, and realized I could either protect this world or watch it be leveraged. I said I couldn't sign a blank check with my soul. She went quiet, then said maybe we should rethink things. There it was, the or. The next morning I drove to the courthouse with a manila folder and hands that wouldn't stop drying themselves on my jeans. In our state, divorce has a waiting period dressed up as wisdom, so I filed for legal separation first, paperwork that says the marriage is paused even when the noise isn't. The clerk stamped dates that would become anniversaries I never wanted. I sat in the parking lot and texted Jennifer that I'd filed. No threats, no theatrics, just the truth. She replied with 3 dots that blinked, disappeared, blinked again, then nothing. On the way home, I stopped for milk and a new pack of AA batteries because the hallway smoke detector kept chirping all week. Back at the house, I swapped the batteries and listened to the quiet click when the cover seated right. It wasn't victory, it was maintenance. I told the kids dinner would be breakfast, and we flipped pancakes like we used to. I'd chosen a path. Now I had to walk it alone. 2 pink lines on a stick, then a voicemail from the clinic confirming what the silence already had. Jennifer printed the email and pinned it to the fridge with a magnet shaped like a baseball. Our kids grabbed cereal and never noticed the fine print. I noticed everything. The appointment times, the intake nurse's name, the line that said support person. That used to be me. She floated through the kitchen like a host on a daytime show, offering me decaf as if this were a rerun. She asked if I wanted to see the first ultrasound photo. I looked, because I'm not cruel, a lima bean in a halo. She smiled like victories were measured in grayscale. I set the picture back under the magnet and reached for my lunch pail. In the driveway, the sun sat low over the cul-de-sac like a yellow caution light. Neighbors waved. Somewhere, a mower hummed. Jennifer waited for a word I didn't owe. Congratulations is for a team you play on. I kept my hands at my sides. The family group text woke up like a hornet nest. Aunts I hadn't heard from since our wedding came buzzing with paragraphs. You're abandoning her, one wrote, adding a prayer hands emoji for punctuation. Emily looped in a prayer chain at church. My name landed on a list next to people with broken hips. Jennifer's mom called to say, a real man stands by his wife, as if the dictionary were on her side. I do stand by my wife, I said. I just refuse to be dragged by a decision I didn't make. After dinner, I rinsed plates while my middle child practiced spelling at the counter, sounding out responsibility. Funny word, responsibility. It has a spine if you let it. I typed a single message to the family chat. I will care for my children. I will not participate in a pregnancy that isn't ours. I read it out loud once to hear if it sounded like me. It did. I pressed send and set the phone face down. Appointments sprouted like dandelions. Lab work, labs for the labs, a consult about birthing plans. Jennifer slid a calendar toward me with dates highlighted, her pen hovering for my initials. I'll need rides, maybe company, she said, the way you ask someone to pass the salt. I looked at the calendar and saw my life pre-booked without consent. You can drive, I said. Emily and Daniel can help. She muttered something about parking garages and morning sickness. I took the minivan for an oil change and rotated the tires because real safety is something you can torque. On the day of the first ultrasound with sound, she asked if I wanted to hear the heartbeat. There are sounds that change a person. The first cry of your child. The last word from your father. This wasn't mine to carry. I stood at the sink and fixed a dripping faucet, turning the wrench until the leak stopped. While gel met skin across town, I listened to the quiet become honest. Heartless arrived in whispers first, sideways looks at the grocery store, a neighbor's tight smile that didn't reach her eyes. Then it showed up in a voicemail from Jennifer's mother, a full indictment dressed as concern. How can you be so cold? She asked. I was driving past the park where I taught my oldest to ride a bike, where I learned that letting go is the whole point. I pulled over and let the voicemail finish. Cold isn't the word I'd choose. Clear is better. I made dinner that night, meatloaf and boxed mashed potatoes, the comfort food of men who learned to cook in a hurry. The kids asked if Mom was feeling sick. I told them she was resting. After bedtime, I stood in the garage, hands on a workbench I built from a kit, and realized labels are what people use when boundaries inconvenience them. Heartless is what you call a locked door when you want the room. I clicked off the light. Clarity doesn't apologize. Emily and Daniel came over with a store-bought pie and the tone of ambassadors. We sat on the deck while mosquitoes negotiated for our ankles. Emily went first, all earnest eyes. This is about family, she said, as if the word itself could notarize her plan. Daniel nodded along like a bobblehead on a dashboard. I took a breath and looked at the swing set I'd assembled one bolt at a time. Family is why I'm drawing a line, I said. My kids didn't ask for their home to become a mission field. Daniel tried the phrase, "It takes a village," and I agreed, then asked why the village's bill was being mailed to my house. Emily's voice thinned. You're punishing generosity. No, I thought, I'm refusing conscription. The porch light kicked on as if the house itself wanted company. I stood, collected paper plates, and said I wouldn't be attending strategy meetings for a journey I never joined. I slid the glass door shut and watched our reflections separate in the pane. Jennifer started labeling the big family calendar again, soccer, orthodontist, garbage day, as if routine were an eraser. She made my favorite casserole on a Wednesday and tried a joke about cravings by proxy. I laughed the way you laugh at a meeting so it will end faster. She crossed out separation on a budget spreadsheet and wrote interim. I corrected it with a pen. In the living room, our wedding photo still sat on the mantel, smile frozen in a world that didn't know what was coming. I didn't move it. Some museums keep exhibits to teach caution. After bedtime, she sat on the edge of the couch and patted the cushion beside her. I sat in a chair instead. "We can do this," she said. "We've done hard before." Hard together is not the same as hard alone. The dishwasher clicked into its dry cycle, the long hiss of a stadium clearing out. She tried to take my hand. I folded laundry. Normal ended when trust did. The list started small. Pickles, ginger tea, a heating pad for her back. Then it grew. A weekend birthing class, a hospital tour, her asking if I could practice timing contractions, just in case. I checked the smoke detectors and folded towels. I didn't book a tour for someone else's finish line. When she asked for a foot rub on a night my youngest needed help with a diorama, I said I could glue trees or massage arches, not both. Parenthood is triage. You choose what bleeds. She accused me of withholding kindness. I said kindness without boundaries turns into resentment, and that spills on everyone. At church, a woman pressed a pamphlet about supportive partners into my palm. I tucked it in my jacket and later used it as a bookmark in a mystery novel. Jennifer taped a list of cravings to the fridge, right under the chore chart. I kept my boxes checked. I won't rehearse a role I didn't audition for. That's not cruelty. That's clarity with a spine. One evening we circled each other at the kitchen island like two lawyers without a judge. "You're still my husband," she said, framing it as a contract clause. I nodded. "On paper," I answered, "but paper isn't a marriage." She leaned on the word duty like it could hold our weight. Duty is real. I live on it when I pack lunches at 6 a.m. and fix wonky cabinet hinges. But duty without consent is indentured. She said she didn't recognize the man I'd become. I said I was just finally acting like the man I'd needed to be months ago. The kids banged around upstairs, the ceiling a drum of small feet. "Can't you be decent?" she asked. "Decency," I told her, "is telling the truth before it rots. My truth is, I won't carry a decision that erased me." We ate leftovers in opposite corners of the room, scraping forks that sounded like arguments. When I washed the dishes, I left her glass on the counter to dry by itself. It was late. The cul-de-sac had gone quiet the way neighborhoods do after 10. Dog doors closed, sprinklers whispering. I stepped out to take the trash and found Jennifer in the driver's seat, engine off, cheeks wet, hands tight on the wheel at 10 and 2. She stared ahead like the windshield might give her an answer if she held still. "I can't do this alone," she said without looking at me. The sentence reached for the old me, the fixer who would grab a jacket and a checklist. I rested my forearms on the open window and kept my voice low. "You're not alone. You have Emily. You have Daniel." She shook her head, a tiny motion that said more than words. "I need you." Need can be honest and still be misplaced. I thought of our kids asleep inside, of the promises I did make. I told her I couldn't be the net for a trapeze I never climbed. I went in and locked the door gently for the sleepers. At 3 a.m., the house groaned in winter language. Jennifer knocked, whispered my name, then asked if I could grab antacids and maybe some ice cream. I pictured my alarm at 6, a spelling test, a client call, the tightrope of a Tuesday. "Please," she said, and the word had the weight of the woman I once chased across a parking lot in the rain. I opened the door enough to meet her eyes. "Not my kid," I said, the syllables heavy but true. "Not my pregnancy, not my responsibility." She pulled back like I'd set down a hot pan between us. Regret pricked my ribs, the way it does when you choose a painful right over an easy wrong. She stood in the hall for a beat, then turned away. I sat on the edge of the bed and stared at the dark ceiling, counting the seconds until the house exhaled again. Lines keep people from falling into traffic. This was mine. I lay back and let the night hold. Responsibility has a smell, like coffee at 5 a.m. and motor oil on old t-shirts. I didn't smell it on Daniel. He skipped an appointment because of a meeting that ran long, then showed up late to another with a to-go latte and an apology that sounded polished. Jennifer defended him. He's juggling a lot with Emily, and I nodded because I know juggling. But jugglers don't drop the one ball that's supposed to mean everything. I called Daniel and said a plain sentence, "This is yours to carry." He said words like bandwidth and season, as if life were a calendar that excused you. I asked if he'd installed the car seat. Silence. "We'll get to it," he said, and I heard the future in those 4 words. Later, I found an unopened car seat box leaning by our garage steps like a promise no one wanted to assemble. He texted a thumbs-up emoji to a group chat and nothing to me. His silence was a confession with better lighting. Bills multiplied. Clinic copays, legal retainers, school fees due the same week as cleats and orchestra rentals. My calendar looked like someone had spilled Skittles on it. I opened a folder on my desk labeled Records and started filling it. Screenshots, dates, who said what. Not as ammunition, as memory that doesn't lie. The kids asked small, brave questions. Will Mom come to my game? Can Grandma pick me up if you can't? I answered with the steadiness of a crossing guard. At work, I told my manager I'd be predictable even if my life wasn't. She nodded, a woman who'd raised twins and knew storms. One night, after bedtime, I stood in the hallway between the kids' rooms and felt the squeeze of a vice I didn't order. Cornered is a word people use before they remember they still have a spine. I set alarms, paid what was mine, and let the rest find its rightful owner. If they wanted a wall, I built one with receipts and resolve. There's a difference between patience and waiting for a miracle you won't name. I realized which one I'd been doing while dusting a shelf of framed photos. First day of school, a picnic where we both looked young enough to be babysitters. I studied the woman in those pictures and knew she still lives somewhere, but she's not the one in this story. I sat on the edge of the bed with a laundry basket and let the truth land softly. I loved what we were. What we are doesn't love me back. I thought about the first time I saw Jennifer cry over a bad haircut and how I joked it would grow, and it did. Some things don't. I folded a sweatshirt and placed it in a drawer like laying a flower on a grave. When I turned off the lamp, I didn't make a wish. Grief, when it's honest, is a clean room. I slept without bargaining with the morning. That was the night my hope clock stopped. People expect rage, but what I felt was winter. I kept the house running like a well-planned road trip. Gas tank full, snacks packed, maps printed. I labeled shelves, one for school forms, one for lunchbox supplies, one by the door for items labeled Emily's. Jennifer noticed, eyes flicking to the smallest shelf and back to me. I stopped using nicknames. She stopped asking what time I'd be home. We spoke in logistics, a language that gets children where they need to be. I wasn't punishing, I was preserving. When friends asked how I was, I said, sober. It's the only word that felt right for a man who'd quit a kind of intoxication. One evening, she stood in the hallway holding a baby book with a soft cover and asked if I wanted to pick out a name for a page. I said names are promises, and I'm out of the business of making promises I can't keep. Compassion isn't compliance. I handed her the book and fetched a blanket. The hospital bag appeared by the front door, zipped and ready, like a suitcase for a trip I wasn't taking. A car seat finally materialized in Daniel's trunk. He texted a photo as if the install settled our souls. The kids sensed weather. My oldest asked if everything would change that day. I said some things might, but the important things, homework at the table, Saturday pancakes, our dog hogging the couch, wouldn't. At Little League, I watched my son at shortstop scoop a grounder and make the easy throw. There's a grace to choosing the sure out. That night, Jennifer stood in the doorway and asked if I'd be on call, her words. Your sister and your husband should be, I said, not unkind. She nodded like a person who hears, not a person who agrees. We slept in separate rooms, the house humming its familiar lullaby. I set my phone on Do Not Disturb and placed it face down. When the call came, I would let it ring. The call came just after dawn, the hour when sprinklers hiss and porches glow blue. Jennifer's text was 3 words. We're heading in. A second later, Emily added a photo of packed bags and a thumbs up. I sat at the table with black coffee and a lunchbox that still smelled like last night's oranges. My phone buzzed again, a hospital bracelet around Jennifer's wrist, her name in block letters. the date stamped like a verdict. I stared until the screen dimmed. In another life, I would have tossed on a jacket, grabbed the go bag, kissed foreheads at red lights. In this life, I set cereal bowls for 3 and tied a shoelace with one hand. The kids asked why I was dressed for work so early. Big week, I said, and it was, just not the kind that fits in a planner. When Emily called, I let it ring into voicemail. Then I texted a sentence I could live with. I'm with the kids today. I turned the phone face down and started pancakes. By mid-morning, the group thread lit up like a pinball machine. Emily typed play-by-plays, admissions, vitals, room number, like she was narrating a game nobody asked me to watch. Jennifer's mom left a voicemail with a tremor. She needs you there. Need felt like a hook. I made a sandwich, cut the crusts the way my youngest likes, and loaded the dishwasher. Friendlier numbers pinged too. A neighbor offering rides, a cousin reminding me, birth is a miracle. Miracles are real. Consent is too. At noon, I stepped outside with the dog, the sun bright and blunt. A delivery truck rattled by, and for a second I pictured myself in a waiting room chair, plastic plant to my right, vending machine hummed to my left, rehearsing a smile I no longer owned. I went back inside and switched the laundry. When my phone lit with the hospital's main line, I silenced it. Choices are loud. Refusals must be firm. I didn't go. That sentence sat heavy, and exactly where it belonged. In the late afternoon, she called. No group chat, no sister. Just Jennifer's voice, thinner than usual, breath catching between words. "Michael," she said, "please." I could hear machines in the background, the soft percussion of a room doing its job. There was a time I would have sprinted at that sound. I leaned against the kitchen counter and said her name back, steady. She asked me to come, just for a few minutes, for closure, as if attendance could bless a boundary broken months ago. I told her I wouldn't. "You promised vows," she said. I told her I promised partnership. She said this was for family. I told her family includes the 3 kids at our table tonight, and they deserved a quiet dinner and a father who kept his word. Silence widened, then a muffled voice, Emily maybe, prompting. Jennifer tried one more time, calling me hun like a rope tossed across a canyon. I set the rope down. "I'm not coming," I said, and the words didn't wobble. After sunset, the chorus arrived. Voicemails with moral footnotes, texts stacked like pamphlets on a windshield. Heartless. Abandoning. A real man. I listened to 2, deleted 5, saved 3 because paper trails protect when memory tries to soften edges. Emily wrote that my absence would scar the narrative. Narratives scar when people lie to themselves. I put spaghetti on the stove and let the sauce simmer until the kitchen smelled like a simpler decade. Between stirring, I typed a message for the family thread and read it aloud to make sure it sounded like a man who could sleep after pressing send. "I'm available for our children. I will not participate in a pregnancy I did not consent to. Please direct medical and emotional needs to the baby's parents." I added the line, "Stop contacting me during dinner hours, because boundaries work best with times." Then I turned the phone off for the night. You can't stop a flood by arguing with water. You build a dam and protect your ground. That night I cooked garlic bread too long and nobody complained. We played a round of Go Fish and my youngest cheated in the adorable way that still asks for permission. I tucked them in with extra blankets and a joke about snoring squirrels. Ordinary is a shelter if you respect it. When the house finally stilled, I washed the last pan and wiped the counter in long, patient strokes, the way I watched my father do when I was small. He taught me that men do the next right thing, even when nobody is taking notes. On the fridge, the school calendar showed a field trip Wednesday and a band concert Friday. I circled both in red. In the living room, the baby swing Jennifer ordered weeks ago sat half-assembled, its straps soft as apologies. I draped a towel over it so my eyes wouldn't snag each time I crossed the room. Drama demands an audience. I refused the ticket. I checked the door locks, turned off the porch light, and slept. 2 days later, the front door opened and Jennifer stepped in with the carrier, small hat, hospital blanket, the whole scene you see in commercials, the only difference being the credits. Emily hovered with a bag. Daniel followed, carrying nothing but his phone. The dog perked, the kids froze, and I felt the air tilt. Jennifer moved straight to the living room and set the carrier on the rug like a new planet. Bottles appeared on the counter, diapers on the ottoman, a nursing pillow where mail usually stacked. "We'll only be here a bit," Emily said. "Just until I'm fully recovered." Jennifer looked at me, eyes hopeful, like I might bless the arrangement by not objecting. I did not object. I named. "This is not my child," I said, evenly. "Your room is down the hall, Jennifer. Emily and Daniel, you have your home." The baby rustled, making that small sound that scrapes the softest part of a person. I let it pass through me like weather. Weather changes. Walls stand. Night pulled its old tricks. The house louder at 2 a.m., the refrigerator a baritone, the clock a metronome. The baby's cry threaded everything. It's a sound engineered to move adult bodies, and mine had to learn a new instruction. Stay. Around 3, Jennifer knocked and whispered my name. I stared at the ceiling and counted 4 slow breaths before answering through the door. "The kids have school," I said. "I'm on mornings." She asked for 10 minutes, just 10, to shower. 10 minutes can grow into forever if you spend it wrong. "Ask Emily," I said. "Ask Daniel." Floorboards creaked down the hall. Someone muttered. The cry grew a ragged edge. I rolled onto my side and pictured my oldest's math test, the pickup line, the dinner plan. A father's triage is not cruelty, it's rank order. At dawn, I brewed coffee and scrambled eggs while the house still smelled like night. Jennifer shuffled in with hollow eyes. I slid a plate across the counter. Feeding my family is my lane. I stayed there. Sleep-deprived houses are tinderboxes. One evening, the baby's fuss turned volcanic and nobody could find the pacifier that solves everything for 30 seconds. Jennifer snapped at Emily. Emily snapped back. Daniel stared at a baseball game on mute like it contained instructions. I gathered our kids' homework, shepherded them to their rooms, and closed their doors softly, storm shutters before landfall. In the hallway, Jennifer cornered me, whisper yelling so we wouldn't wake anyone we already had. "You could help," she hissed. "You could pick up a bottle." I kept my voice level. "You built this plan without me. You can run it without me." She called me a ghost, a stone, a dozen nouns that felt like the right shapes for the wrong reasons. The baby screamed as if punctuation. I stepped outside into the cool dark where porch lights flickered and someone watered tomatoes by flashlight. I stood on the sidewalk and looked at our glowing windows. A man can love what's inside and still refuse to walk through a fire. At 4 a.m., the house finally sagged into a tired quiet. I was halfway to sleep when the mattress dipped and I felt her weight beside me. "I can't do this alone," she said, voice sanded down to the truth. Under different circumstances, that sentence summons 1,000 tiny rescues: ibuprofen, cold washcloths, a fresh start. I stared at the dark and remembered how she'd moved through this decision like a person choosing paint colors, inviting me to admire after she'd rolled the second coat. "You aren't alone," I said. "Emily and Daniel are the parents. Your mom is 2 miles away. Ask them." She took a breath that sounded like a shiver. "I'm asking you." I pictured our 3 kids down the hall, sweat-damp hair on pillows, chests lifting in the mercy of sleep. "I can't be the father of a choice that erased me," I said. The sentence felt like gravel and ground all the same. She left the room without closing the door. Morning found the hinges. People assume anger burns hottest. Sometimes it's the frost that bites. I moved through the next days like a man repairing a roof while snow falls. Measured, methodical, unbeautiful. I ironed shirts, paid bills, cleaned a science project volcano out of the sink. Jennifer looked for sparks in my eyes and found pilot lights. "Do you even feel anything?" she asked. I wanted to say yes, the ache of what used to be, the itch of the life that might have been. But sentiment can become quicksand. "I'm doing what's right," I said instead, which is a feeling that behaves. She cried on the couch with the baby on her chest, and I covered them both with a blanket because compassion has hands. Then I walked the dog because routines keep men from drowning. Out on the sidewalk, a neighbor waved with that careful look people give when they've heard headlines but not the story. I waved back, a man in a winter coat in April. Numb kept me upright. That was enough. The calls multiplied. Jennifer's mother, then her aunt, Then a friend from small group who said she was speaking truth in love. Love doesn't need italics. I let most calls go to voicemail and saved the ones that made claims I'd need to refute later. He refused medical care, one said. I kept the time-stamped texts showing otherwise for our kids. Dentist, pediatrician, permission slips. My lawyer told me to document without bitterness. Paper already has ink. Meanwhile, the house kept its clock. Trash day, library day, Friday pizza. I took the kids to the park and watched my youngest conquer a ladder by talking himself up each rung. One more step, one more step. That's how men survive their 30s and 40s. The pressure tried to make me sprint. I chose steps. That night I toggled my phone to do not disturb and set a bedtime alarm like a promise. On my nightstand, a stack of folders grew. You don't fight a campaign like theirs. You outlast it. Saturday afternoon, Daniel knocked like a teenager. 3 quick taps, a pause, 2 more. I opened the door and saw a man carved by stress but not shaped by it. He asked if we could talk man to man, which usually means someone needs a favor he should be asking himself. We stood on the porch like neighbors comparing lawn treatments. He said the words I'd expected. She's struggling. I need you to step up, for her sake. The phrase for her sake landed like a misdelivered package. I handed it back. You're the father, I said. Step up for your kid. He talked about Emily's recovery, work deadlines, a boss who doesn't get it. Bosses rarely do. Children don't care. I asked him if he knew how to swaddle. He didn't. I asked if he'd read the car seat manual. He looked at his shoes. He said, "We're all family." I said, "That's true, and every family has lanes. Get in yours." His mouth tightened. He offered a nod that wasn't agreement. Daniel tried one more angle. "Just a few nights," he said, "until Emily's fully back." A few nights is how habits start. I told him the guest room was for my kids' cousins on sleepovers, not for the parents of a baby who already has a home. He mentioned money and offered to cover costs if that would make me more comfortable. Comfort isn't the currency here. Responsibility is. I walked him to his car and pointed at the trunk, where the car seat sat crooked. "Level that base," I said. "Then install the mirror so you can see her." He blinked, already overwhelmed by the length of a simple to-do list. "You can do this," I added, "because men should tell each other the truth even when it stings." He sighed and muttered that I'd regret this stance. Regret is a future problem. Dereliction is a present one. I waved once, went inside, and made grilled cheeses. My kids ate at the counter, legs kicking, exactly the rhythm I protect. Tension doesn't vanish, it collects. A week later, it finally overflowed. The baby howled through dinner, spaghetti cooled into a red map, and Jennifer found me in the hallway, eyes shot through with sleepless red. "You win," she said, which is what people say when they mean, "I can't move you." Emily stood behind her, arms crossed, a jury of one. Words flew, accusations like fastballs, memories pitched as proof. I kept my palms open and my voice low. "I won nothing," I said. "I'm choosing sanity for our kids." "Say it," Emily snapped. "Say you don't care." I looked at the family photos on the wall, every frame a chapter, and said, "I care in the right direction." The baby's cry sharpened into a siren. A neighbor's porch light clicked on. Jennifer pressed her lips together like a lid and whispered, "I can't breathe here." For the first time, I believed her. I pointed toward the door and said, "Then don't." The sentence surprised even me with its clean edge. It happened fast, the way slow things finally do. Jennifer packed a tote with practiced hands, diapers, wipes, 2 onesies folded into thirds. Emily grabbed the carrier. Daniel hovered like a man who lost the instruction sheet and didn't want to admit it. Our kids stood at the top of the stairs, silent, wiser than the moment deserved. I told them to wait in their rooms and promised I'd come up in 5 minutes. At the door, Jennifer looked back. Not for permission, for, I don't know, history, maybe, habit. I gave a single nod that said, "I won't stop you, and I won't chase you." She stepped onto the porch. The night had that clean after-rain smell, like new asphalt and wet leaves. The door shut with the soft thud of a book closing. I locked it because locks aren't about shutting people out, they're about keeping children safe. Then I climbed the stairs, sat on the edge of each bed, and told my kids the only true thing. We're okay. We'll stay okay. The first morning after she left, the house had a soundtrack I hadn't heard in months. Nothing but the coffee maker, the dog's collar, a pencil-scratching homework. Quiet isn't empty when you're raising kids. It's room to breathe. I made pancakes without stepping over a diaper bag. The kids ate in their usual seats. The sun hit the table at the usual angle, and I realized how starved I'd been for ordinary. Relief showed up as small mercies, matching socks on the first try, shoes lined by the door, the mailbox not holding a crisis. After school, we threw a football in the yard and laughed when our throws wobbled. I felt guilt try to sneak in, the old reflex to fix what isn't mine. I let it pass. That night, dishes clinked instead of voices. Before bed, I checked the locks, the way my dad always did, and told the kids the same line he told me. This house keeps us. I believed it. The quiet didn't accuse. It blessed. Relief lasted 48 hours. Then the calls poured in like election robocalls. "She just had a baby," one aunt scolded. "You're abandoning your family," said another, adding a Bible verse for garnish. A thick envelope arrived from Jennifer's mother, 4 pages of history lessons and moral math ending with, "Do the right thing." I read every word once, because adults should face what's thrown at them. Then I set rules. No calls after dinner, no surprise visits. Emergencies for the kids come straight to me. Everything else goes to the baby's parents. I typed those boundaries into a message, read it aloud to hear if it sounded like a man, not a stump speech, and pressed send. I blocked the numbers that kept crossing lines. The next day, my phone stayed quiet during homework time. We sounded out vocabulary words, integrity, consequence, promise, and I heard the lesson land on both sides of the table. Pressure works on people who haven't decided. I had decided. The campaign wouldn't reroute me. Being firm doesn't require being cruel. I built a 3-sentence rule for every incoming blast. Acknowledge, restate, exit. I hear your concern. I'm caring for our children. Direct all baby-related needs to the baby's parents. Copy, paste, done. The kids ask small questions in the car. Is mom mad at you? Are we in trouble? And I kept answers simple. Adults disagree sometimes. You are not the reason. At work, I told my manager I'd keep my hours steady and my head clear. She nodded like someone who's seen storms and stocked batteries. A neighbor dropped a casserole on the porch and texted, "No drama, just dinner." I warmed it and wrote a thank you note by hand. Evenings settled into a rhythm. Homework, leftovers, dog walk, lights out. Each step reinforced the decision I'd made. Protect peace where I can, refuse chaos where I must. Unmoved doesn't mean unfeeling. It means feelings no longer sit in the driver's seat. They can ride along, buckled in, while I steer us home. Emily's message landed at lunchtime, 3 minutes long, polished like a TED Talk. She accused me of rewriting the story, of weaponizing boundaries, of failing the sisterhood she and Jennifer share. She used the word cruel twice and family 7 times. I listened once at my desk, then again in the garage where words don't echo. Her closing line, "Someday your kids will know you abandoned their mother." I saved the file. Narratives are smoke until you bottle them. That night, after the dishes, I sent a short reply by text so there'd be a record. I heard your voicemail. I will not discuss this by phone. Written communication only. All baby-related requests should go to you and Daniel. Then I put my phone face down and helped my daughter glue popsicle sticks into a model bridge. We tested how much weight it could bear before cracking. When it finally snapped, she laughed and started over stronger. I took the hint. I'm building something that needs to last. Saturday, Daniel showed up with a tight smile and hands in pockets, the universal posture of a man hoping to trade discomfort for relief. He asked if we could talk for just 5 minutes. We stood on the porch like neighbors discussing gutters. He said Jennifer was drowning and I could throw a rope. I pointed across the street at the cul-de-sac where our kids learned to ride bikes. I let go when they were ready, I said. They had to pedal. He said Emily's recovery was slower than expected, that work was brutal, that he was stretched thin. I nodded because those are real sentences. Then I used one of my own. Take care of your child. He offered money, a schedule, promises that sounded like coupons, fine print and expiration dates. I told him the guest room wasn't a staging area for someone else's family. He asked if I'd regret this. Regret is tomorrow's maybe, I said. Boundaries are today's yes. I opened the door just wide enough to end the talk. Later that week, he returned with a car seat manual in hand, misreading help for co-parenting. Can you just show me the basics? He asked. Basics become habits. Habits become expectations. I walked him to his car, leveled the base, clicked the straps, and told him what every new father needs to hear. You can do this, and you have to. When he tried to pivot, maybe the baby could sleep here a night or two, I didn't soften it. No. Not maybe, not we'll see, not let me think. No. The word felt clean in my mouth, like biting into a cold apple. Inside, my son called from the kitchen for help with long division. I left Daniel on the driveway with a working car seat and his own shadow. Back at the table, we split the remainder into equal parts and everyone could see where the numbers went. That's what I wanted for my life, the kind of math a child can follow. No hidden variables, no borrowed sums. A week later, Jennifer texted, "Can we talk?" No amplified audience, no chorus. I said yes, in daylight, on the porch. She arrived with a small bag and the tired courage you only see in new mothers and marathoners at mile 20. The baby stayed with Emily. That was new. She asked how the kids were. I told her, science project, scraped knee, a spelling test aced. She smiled at the right places, then looked at our front window the way people look at a place they used to live. I miss this, she said. I miss us. Wind moved the chimes, a sound I used to find corny and now heard like punctuation. You miss stability, I said. The mortgage paid, the calendar that runs, the man who fills the freezer. She flinched at the accuracy, then recovered. I miss being together, she insisted. We can fix it. Together means consent. We didn't have that when it mattered. I told her we could discuss logistics and the kids. The rest was closed. We sat on the steps, careful with the space between us. Jennifer talked about sleepless nights, bills piling up, how hard it is to ask for help when you've always been the helper. I know that story. Pride has teeth. She reached for my hand, and I didn't move mine. I want to come home, she said. The word home tried to work its old magic. I asked what she wanted from me besides address and routine. She didn't answer fast enough for it to be love. I need stability, she said finally, and the truth rang like a glass struck with a spoon. Stability is good. It's also not the same as marriage. I told her I would keep our children's lives steady and safe, that I'd communicate clearly and treat her with respect, that I'd show up for school concerts and pediatrician visits, but I would not move the boundary that guards what's left of me. She looked away, blinking hard. Naming the motive didn't punish her. It protected me. She cried then, the kind of crying that folds a person forward, not for effect, but because a body bows under certain weights. I'm sorry, she said, and for a beat I believed this could be the hinge. Then came the rest, for how things turned out. Not for secrecy, not for erasing me. Outcomes got the blame, not choices. She asked if we could pause the legal stuff and try counseling first. I support counseling. I also respect triage. You treat the bleed before you discuss vitamins. We can co-parent well, I said. We can talk with a mediator about schedules and costs. She wanted to talk about us, about date nights and vacations we might take. I stared at the yard we mowed together for years and saw two sets of tracks that no longer lined up. I won't rebuild a house on a cracked foundation, I said. The sentence ended the porch meeting. She wiped her cheeks, stood, and said she understood. Understanding isn't consent. The boundary held. Word traveled that I was ice. Maybe, or maybe I'd finally stopped confusing warmth with surrender. I kept my door open for what mattered. Drop-offs, medical updates, school logistics. When Jennifer texted that she needed a ride to a follow-up while Emily had a doctor's appointment of her own, I sent 3 options: rideshare, her mother, Daniel. I wasn't unhelpful. I was unavailable for codependency. I printed a resource sheet, support groups, lactation consultants, rental agencies, legal aid, because information can be kindness too. I handed it to her like a map and did not offer to drive. That night, my oldest asked if I hated Mom. No, I said. Hate is heavy. We're traveling lighter. We made grilled cheese and watched a show where people restore old houses. The host said you can't skip the inspection. Problems ignored become disasters. That's true, I said. We laughed at a crooked staircase that looked like it wanted to be a slide. Cold didn't feel like the right word. Clear did, and clear kept us safe. Paper replaced whispers. A process server handed me a manila envelope with Jennifer's attorney's letterhead, allegations highlighted in confident font. The old me would have spiraled. The current me opened a file box. I labeled tabs: custody, finances, communication, evidence. I printed texts where I'd set boundaries, receipts for pediatric visits, calendars showing who did what when. My lawyer, a calm woman who speaks in verbs, not thunder, told me to keep everything factual and short. Courts respect boring truth. We filed our response. I spent a Saturday scanning documents while the kids built a blanket fort that somehow ate the living room and gave it back smiling. At night, I rehearsed answers out loud. Yes, I was clear from the beginning. No, I did not attend medical appointments for a pregnancy that was not ours. Yes, I support a healthy relationship between the children and their mother. The mirror didn't flinch. Preparation isn't paranoia, it's stewardship. When the first hearing date arrived by email, I circled it and slept. Her lawyer argued abandonment, emotional cruelty, financial neglect. The words looked heavy on paper and lighter in the face of dates and screenshots. They asked for support, citing temporary inability to work due to infant care. My attorney slid forward the surrogacy agreement I hadn't signed, the timeline of my objections, the emails directing baby-related needs to Emily and Daniel. In a deposition, they asked if I ever raised my voice. Yes, once, when a smoke alarm wouldn't stop chirping at midnight. We all smiled because houses tell on us. They asked if I loved my wife. I said I love the mother of my children and respect her role in their lives. They asked if I'd help her get back on her feet. I said I would always make sure our kids had what they need and that their mother had information and access that helps them. Then I said the sentence that anchors me: not my child, not my duty, not my... It sounded harsh written down. It sounded true. The phrase became their favorite dart and my favorite shield. In court, I explained it with the patience of a dad at a science fair. Duty flows from vows, agreements, and biology. This pregnancy met none of those for me. I wasn't cruel. I was consistent. We submitted the record, messages where I wished Jennifer well but declined involvement, notes where I provided schedules, receipts for everything the kids needed. Her side produced texts from relatives calling me names. The judge did not consult relatives. We clarified money. I'd kept the mortgage paid, lights on, lunches packed. I wasn't chasing a win. I was documenting a life that stayed upright. My attorney asked me the only question that mattered. Where has your focus been? On stability for our children, I said. On routine, school, home. The courtroom air felt dry, like a library. Truth tends to lower the humidity. I walked out not smug, not broken, just braced, the way you stand when wind shifts and you want both feet planted. The hearing felt like a long parent-teacher conference without the art projects. The judge asked clear questions and interrupted speeches with requests for facts. A guardian ad litem spoke to the kids and reported what I already knew. They were doing well at home, grades steady, routines intact. Jennifer's attorney leaned hard on sacrifice and intention. Mine leaned on outcomes and impact. We watched a short video of our house walkthrough. Bedrooms tidy, chore chart on the fridge, backpacks lined by the door. Boring exhibits make strong cases. When Jennifer testified, she cried. I didn't look away. She said she believed we could heal with support. The judge asked who we included and what support meant. Silence is punctuation too. My turn came. I kept it simple. I will support the children's relationship with their mother. I won't share a household or responsibilities for a child that isn't mine. The gavel didn't thunder. It clicked once, professional and final. Orders would be issued in writing. We filed out into a brighter hallway. The order arrived by email on a Tuesday afternoon, a PDF that decided the next chapter. I opened it at the kitchen table where most of our life happens. Full physical custody to me. Jennifer. Scheduled visitation, joint legal decisions for our 3 kids, expectations spelled out like a recipe anyone can follow. No spousal support related to the infant. Each sentence felt less like victory than like scaffolding, what you put around a building while it's repaired. I printed 2 copies, one for the file box, one for the fridge behind a magnet shaped like a baseball. The kids came home noisy and hungry, and I told them the only parts that matter to children. You're with me. You'll see Mom on these days. Our routines stay the same. My oldest nodded with relief you could hear. That night I washed dishes with the window open, letting the evening air carry off months of stale arguments. The house hummed. Quiet returned, not as an accident, but as a decision kept. The first full week felt like slipping back into boots that finally fit. Mornings were simple again. Eggs, backpacks, a joke about who left the milk out. I packed lunch notes, short lines like, "You're brave and proud of you," because small sentences prop up big days. After school, we practiced grounders in the yard, then sat at the table where pencils tap and stories spill. One night a storm knocked the power out. I lit candles, and the living room turned into a campfire without the smoke. We played Go Fish by flashlight and laughed when the dog stole a card. My youngest asked, "Are we okay now?" I didn't rush the answer. I looked at 3 faces I'd carry through any weather. "We're better than okay," I said. "We're steady." Later, when the lights blinked back, no one cheered. We'd already found what we needed: quiet, rhythm, a home that didn't argue with itself. I stood in the hallway with a laundry basket and understood. Peace isn't loud, it's faithful. The first pickup landed on a Friday. I packed their overnight bags like a checklist for calm: pajamas, favorite stuffed animals, a printed schedule tucked in the front pocket. When Jennifer pulled up, I walked the kids out and kept my tone even. "Have fun. Be kind. Text me if plans change." No courtroom speeches on the porch, just parenting. She looked smaller than I remembered, tired around the eyes, careful with her words. "Thank you," she said, and for once it wasn't a lever. At the exchange point, we stood 6 feet apart and agreed on times the way grown-ups do when they're done pretending. The kids came back Saturday with drawings and questions, and I answered only what belonged to them. "Yes, your bedtime is the same here. No, you don't have to choose sides." Before they went to sleep, my oldest whispered, "It felt different." I nodded. Different isn't bad. Different can be honest. The climax came in a handshake. Brief, businesslike, enough. We had found the tone, firm, not cruel. Group chats went quiet the way cicadas stop, sudden, then blessed. Emily texted once about a hard night. I replied with the resource list I'd already given Jennifer: support group, pediatric nurse line, postpartum counselor. Daniel sent a photo of their baby asleep in a bassinet at their place, the angle clumsy and proud. I wrote back, "Good work, keep going." Jennifer's mother mailed a short note: "No sermons, just we'll do our part." I called that progress. In our house, we pulled weeds and planted tomatoes. The kids watched cardinals at the feeder and argued about names for the red one. I walked into the living room and saw the half-assembled baby swing gathering dust. It didn't belong in our story anymore. I loaded it in the trunk, drove it to Emily and Daniel's porch, and rang the bell. No lecture, just a transfer of weight to the right hands. Back home, I swept the empty space, the way you do after taking down a tree. Suddenly, the room could breathe. Freedom didn't arrive with fireworks. It showed up on a Sunday afternoon when nobody needed me but my kids. We grilled hot dogs, sprayed the lawn for ants, and tuned a guitar that can't hold pitch but tries. I rehung photos in the hallway: school pictures, muddy cleats, a sunrise from last summer's road trip. I retired the wedding frame to a box labeled "History, not trash." That felt right. After bedtime, I sat on the porch with a glass of water and a dog whose only agenda is being near. The phone stayed face down, and for once, quiet felt like a friend, not a lookout. I thought about men I know, brothers, neighbors, guys from work, who confuse peace with winning. I wasn't keeping score. I was keeping house. The wind moved through the maple, and I heard my father's old line in the leaves: "Do the next right thing." I exhaled, long and clean, and realized I wasn't bracing anymore. I wasn't waiting for a knock. I was home.